Sweet baby Lord of the Seven. This is the Showboys podcast, and this is the House of the Dragon campaign series. I'm Nick, joining me is Chad, and we're about to break down episode 9 of House of the Dragon, titled The Green Council. And this is a very fitting name because yeek, they get
Yeah.
a little spicy in this episode. I mean,
Oh yeah.
definitely very interested to see where Chad's allegiance here is, because this is a very strong Hightower episode, which gives them a lot of pluses to their side, but per usual we have some negatives tossed into the mix
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So man, this was now we've really liked last week's episode. I really like this week's episode, and I had that feeling too, because I was like, well, this is the penultimate episode. Penultimate episodes in Game of Thrones are always arguably sometimes better than
Yeah.
the finale.
Yeah. Typically.
And
Yeah.
this one earned its place in traditional penultimate Game of Thrones episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with you. I would think, action wise, I don't think it does, obviously, but I think what happens in this episode is the penultimate that they've been building to the entire season, right?
Mm-hmm.
The usurping of the throne that happens here is the big moment that they were building towards. So yeah, I would agree with you. I think that it's a good way to set itself apart from Game of Thrones as well. The penultimate in Game of Thrones was always the big action set piece episodes. And this has a little bit of that towards the end, but it's
big
mostly
set pieces.
Yeah, but it's mostly all setup and dialogue and, world building stuff that's going on in the episode versus dragons burning shit to the ground, right?
I mean, it is palace intrigue turned up to 11 in this episode, because obviously most of the series is palace intrigue, which is always great, but this is palace intrigue on full throttle, because it's legitimately locked down the palace. It's all about intrigue, and then there's this race element to it as well.
Yeah.
And very much a little thriller.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how it felt through the whole episode. And I really, I'm a sucker, especially for the Game of Thrones piano scores. Yes. And this one had a great piano score to it. And I just like the slow burn of this episode, even though there's a lot of bad shit happening. And I will admit to you, I was very, I was getting a little weak in the knees as far as my allegiance went in this episode. But I think Alicent saved it multiple times for me.
Yeah.
I'm still on her side so far. We'll see if she shifts throughout, but she kind of answered some of the questions we had in maybe last week, the week before, where we didn't know if she was the full in. Yeah, right. Yeah. And I think she answered that in this episode multiple times. So.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to note the piano score, very reminiscent of season 6 episode.
Yes.
9.
That's
or 10.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful how they take those piano scores and they stop, and then it weaves itself back in when they enter a new scene that's kind of moving forward the main arc of the show. And then they dial over to hey, meanwhile this is happening, then it's oh, back to the main arc here, and they get the piano. It's just so wonderful, and it does give it that slow burn.
It does.
Something about that piano score that they're so good at.
Yeah, I think they were really riffing off that season 6 finale, because the piano score does sound almost similar to it. And it's that episode, even though a lot of shit happens in the first 20-30 minutes of the episode, it is a slow burn to get to that point. You know what I mean? Really, the big stuff pops off at the explosion when everybody dies. Everything else leading up to that is a very slow, watching people get dressed, that kind of stuff. It was the same in this episode, seeing the empty throne. I love how they opened the episode on the empty throne. You know what I mean? I thought it was really cool to see that, this is where we're at. The throne's empty. Where are we going to go from here? Yeah.
Yeah. And in Game of Thrones, in season 6, it was a very somber, the trial of Cersei, right? The moment kind of everyone's been waiting for and building toward in the season to kind of be a very sad, very kind of bad for her character moment. And then this one's very somber and sad in that it's the death of the king. that we're kind of coming off of, and the ultimate like coup that the High Towers are going to play. So both like are played down is like they're built up to as like sad, serious moments, but like there's always something like kind of boiling underneath, that
Right.
kind of bursts through the floor, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it was really cool. Even though, I mean, I think you could have assumed when we get that small council meeting, and you find out that they've pretty much been planning to kill, you know, Damon and Rhaenyra from
Mhm.
the get go. They've been planning it behind Allison's back. It did feel like kind of a shocking moment that that was coming out, even though you really probably in the back of your mind knew that that was maybe Otto's play in this whole
Yeah.
thing. Was it's really the only way to go. And Allison brings him the, hey, he said he wanted Aegon to be king in his dying breath.
Yep.
And there's, like we said last episode, there's not too much to go off of there, because even if we go back to the original usurping of the throne in the original show when Joffrey took over, it's, they had handwriting in paper, a note written
Yeah.
by the king, and she just rips it up. It's like meaningless. So I
It's like,
would
what are you
think
gonna do?
words, the words that his wife heard in his dying breath is even less meaningless. And I appreciate that Otto seems to feel that way as well. Like he doesn't get like, oh, great, this is a great thing that we can use to move my plan forward. Like he's like, oh, okay, yeah, he said that. Yeah, big
Yeah,
whoop.
and there's a lot of great just like facial expression, communication in this episode, and like when there's just that really brief scene of like Allison telling her father, because like basically it opens up like King's dead, empty throne. We have the servants kind of milling about. It's really early in the morning, like dawn has not even broke yet. So he's been maybe dead for like a couple hours, 4 hours at max. And she's woken up like hours before she normally wakes up. She's still in bed. She goes to her father right away, who's always working. He's already dressed and prepared for the day. But he's he has that a really good look of like, that's so interesting and convenient. You don't say.
Right, right, exactly.
Like that's
Yeah,
so convenient that like that really helps.
yeah,
This whole other thing I'm working on.
right.
Way to start the day, daughter.
Yep.
So proud of you. So yeah, that was really good. And we also get in the background here the spy network that the White Worm, who has been slowly reworked into the story here. Later on, she has a more actual part in the story, but you see the sprinkling of her effect in this very opening scene is, um, the servants all are kind of on the hook. Also, the lighting of the candles in the window, that was pretty sure that was like a message going out,
Yeah,
because she's lighting a candle. She looks over her shoulder, right?
yeah,
She had no
absolutely.
purpose to light those candles, but
Right.
her purpose was definitely to
Yeah.
alert.
Yeah, definitely cool. That's some I mean, we got a little bit of that kind of the kind of spiders in the palace, or whatever you want to call them. I call them
Yeah.
spiders because it reminds me of Varys. But we got a little bit of that in the original series. I hope we get more of it here. I think we are going to get more of it here. More of
Yep.
the, but in the shadows, like her and Laris and those people. I want to see, and because we're focusing so much on this King's Landing story, especially in this first season here, I think we're seeing more of that than we did originally, or more of the inner workings of those systems.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and we've talked about this before. It very much is they're highlighting this side arc of, we're going from a time where it's like all very proper, everything's peacetime, everything's well put together. It's really kind of just like face value, people running the
Right.
show, and this is the shift to, this like spy network, this super deep like backstabbing, treachery, like the
Yeah.
deep Game of Thrones stuff. And um they called out too in the like after show bit that the showrunners do. Um and this is something that Otto knows about, obviously, and he lets go on. And even Laris tells Alicent this, like this is how Otto always has like such a quick start on everything.
Right.
Um, and I thought that was very important because they kind of just sprinkle all this information together in there. But they show the spy network. You have that conversation between Laris and Alicent where he's explaining kind of like there is a reason your dad is always just kind of on the heels of everything. But then also this episode where Otto first meets for the first time the head of that network, and that would be the
Right.
White Worm.
Yeah.
And they kind of have an exchange of understanding where she wants something, she gives him something. And I think that's really the first time where someone in the castle of like a super high position of power has a connection to like outside of the castle. Like they're,
Yeah.
he's no longer just dealing with lord to lord and the council. He's going to begin weaving his machinations through who knows where.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And he really, especially through this episode, he's really reminding me of Tywin. I think that it's a direct parallel with him and Tywin, which I love. Don't get me wrong.
They
But I
make the
do
best
like,
hands.
yeah, they do. And I think that, this show drastically needed a character like that. So I'm really
Hmm.
happy that we got it out of Otto. I'm really glad that he came back because I was pretty bummed when he got sent away, right? When
Yeah.
earlier on in the season. So it is interesting to see them kind of infighting in this episode as well. Like this entire episode is basically an infight between Allison and Otto as they
Yeah.
try to race to get Aegon first. And that I'm interested to see how that plays moving forward because they're going to have a war on their hands, maybe a war on multiple fronts. And we are seemingly dealing with a side with a lot of people that have actually seen war with the
Hmm.
Targaryens and Daemon and the Sea Snake and all of them. They've all been around war. And then we don't know too much about the High Towers, but I assume they feel like a peacetime built up house. You know what I mean? I don't know that they fought a lot of wars.
Well, that's a good point you make because they wear it on their faces, and they've done this multiple times. So one, they're all about the big kind of like expositions, public expositions, whether it's in the throne room or in this case at the Dragon Pit. So they like these big shows of
Yeah.
to make their play, and that's always where they kind of deal their best hand is at these big reveals. Well, I pointed this out in the throne room when Viserys walks in episode 8, right? They kind of all just kind of go pale face, like tail between their legs, like daddy's home, right? Like big dogs come to nest, and like they all
Right.
kind of just like whimper down a little bit after being so built up and like so full of themselves in leading up to that. The same thing happens in this episode when they're all in the dragon pit and they're standing up there on that stage. Like Otto has that same look about him. Like he is just so giddy with
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah.
satisfaction.
Yeah.
Alicent, though, is both like just so proud as a mother, right? And just like happy that like she feels she's doing the right thing. But also before that, she has this look on her face like we've overstepped or like this is great, but we have not been like we haven't seen the other player take their turn yet. So
Yeah.
it's like
Right.
she's like self-aware of that, whereas the rest of them are just like very pompous in their achievement here.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, like, why are they even fighting over Aegon exactly? Because the end goal for both of them is to seemingly get Aegon on the throne, and that's not going to. I wouldn't imagine Otto getting him would have changed the fact that Otto still wants to kill Rhaenyra and Daemon, right?
Right. So this all comes about in that first council scene, and I'll start there to explain it. So, they start that council scene, and it starts off somber. And when she realizes that, like, Lannister is just like, oh, we can kind of just continue forth with our plans we've been plotting. And Otto's like, that's right. There's a lot of stuff we got to get to, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah. And the look on her face, she's just like, it hits her. She realizes that, like, nothing her father has said or ever said like really been true. There's no matter what, there's always that underlying plot of his to usurp the throne no matter what.
Right.
Like that's his main goal, and that's what she kind of starts to realize. So I think the reason it became kind of a race between them because they both enter the room like where's Aegon, and then he dips like ASAP to like get on it.
Yeah.
So I think she realizes that she needs to get control of the narrative here and talk to her son first, and be like and instill her wishes just the same way she left her father after kind of telling him off like we're going to go about this as I see fit, right? This and
Right.
this and this is going to happen. And he's
Yeah.
like, oh, you remind me of your mother. And then but afterwards she leaves, she's like, as you wish. So
Yeah.
it's a super interesting, very subtle thing there, but it wasn't, like, super important, but I think it was important to them that they had the first word with Aegon.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's just yeah, I don't know. That whole small council, first off, Cole, man, what a psychopath, right? Like this
Dude,
guy
I
has
really
just
hate his character
I
so
hate his
much.
character so much too, man. And it's a bummer because I really liked him in the beginning. He
Yeah,
looked like he was going to be the honorable knight sticking by whoever side he lands on, but I mean, arguably is that sticking by their side, but maybe in the worst kind of ways, you know what
yeah.
I mean? And it seems like, and I can't remember, is he the master of coin, that
Yep.
guy?
Yeah.
So he's the only one that is seemingly yeah,
Lyman.
he's
Yeah.
the only one seemingly protesting this entire thing, like saying
Yep.
this is treason and that, and Cole tries to just sit him down and accidentally kills him, which I
Sits
thought
him
was, like,
down really
so jarring.
hard, like,
Yeah,
grabs his shoulders and, like, forces him down, and his head just, like, hits the, like, hit their little meeting
their
sphere.
ball, yeah.
Um, yeah, like, super inappropriate, like,
Right.
massively inappropriate, like, dude, like, calm down, and that's where the Lord Commander is like really like what is going on here. And then I thought it was interesting. I thought Cole was gonna like get punished for that, but instead Otto's like, "Calm down, Lord Commander. Like
Yeah.
enough." I'm like,
Well,
"What?
yeah, I
Enough?"
mean, I
Like,
think yeah, here, even though he's a piece of shit, he's a good guy to have on your side, right? So we don't need him punished. And you already know that the Lord Commander, we've seen it multiple times throughout the show so far. He's already been weary of Cole and Allison from the get
yeah,
go, right?
yep,
So now I think he finally sees that this dude's just going to do whatever the hell he can to help forward her agenda, even if it means killing a dude that was just voicing his opinion,
yeah.
right?
But it's just so forthright of Otto just to back Cole immediately. He's just like, "Lord Commander, like calm down. Like everything's fine." It's like, well,
Yeah, well,
no, like he
yeah.
just killed somebody.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's what sets the current Lord Commander off, and it plays later in the episode too when Cole is named Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, right?
hmm
So, yeah, I think I mean, I feel that Otto did that on purpose. He didn't need them
Yeah.
fighting and in the middle of the small council meeting, and he knows that seemingly the current Lord Commander still has a soft spot for the Targaryens, right? In Rhaenyra and Daemon.
Well,
And
a
I think you
soft
see
spot
that.
for, like, what's correct. Like,
Right, that's
same
true.
thing
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Lyman
yeah,
had, like, yeah,
yeah.
regardless of what the claim is here, like, the last pronounced thing from the king is, like, not this,
Not that, right, yeah,
and he
yeah.
makes such a good point. He's like, "There's no sitting king, so I have no duty here until, you guys figure that out."
Right, right, yeah.
But Cole's just such a little, like, bulldog for Allison, like, he, like, turns his sword on the Lord Commander and just, like, throws a little hissy fit that she was threatened. I'm just like, "Dude, your character sucks." Like, I even borderline don't like the writing for his character either. I don't know if it's, like, a combination of the writing and his acting, but
Yeah,
it's, like, the most painful point of the show for me, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, I agree with you 100%. It's a real bummer because I did like him originally,
Yeah,
but, I don't know where they're going with this dude, but,
just
so
shitty.
yeah, just pure piece of shit.
Well, I kinda had the thought he has traits of kind of really kind of like a little finger character, because he's like ridiculously loyal, like Littlefinger was to say like to
Sansa.
well and her mother, Sansa and her
Yeah,
mother. So like and also he has this like almost once they get something in their head for how things should be for them, like that's just like the way it is. So he does give me like slightly Littlefinger vibes in terms of like their motivations.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that if I wanna be not negative about his character, I would lean him more towards Jamie in the earlier seasons of the show,
mm,
just a shit show, good fighter, doing really shitty shit, really bad stuff every chance that he gets. So, hopefully he gets
except
a
he ain't banging the queen, so
but
he's not as good as Jamie.
right, right. So, I don't know, yeah. I don't know. I don't know where they're going. I hope they change it around, but we could have said that. Like I said, we could have said that same stuff. We could have sat here and did this for season 1 and talked about how bad Jamie was in season 1 and even season 2, really. So
He's
maybe
fantastic.
if they go that
No,
direction,
yeah, yeah, they could be setting up like Jamie has one of the best arcs. Maybe
Right.
Cole has one of the best arcs, but it's just hard because Cole's already like arced within the
Yeah.
season.
Yeah.
Jamie was
True.
just like straight line.
Right.
So weird. Um, so yeah, uh, essentially, yeah, the whole small council meeting is just like a crap shoot, and um, you know, I just like that the Grand Maester is like, we should we'll remove the dead body here. And I was like, no one's leaving until we finish our discussion here. It's like,
Yeah.
dang, like I was just become very served. And poor Allison, like she thought where they were just gonna deal with like the normal order of business. Like King needs buried, King needs like a all the normal stuff that happens. But meanwhile, it's just like let's unleash this ridiculous plot
Right.
um and
But
planning.
like I know when we got, like, our actress change for Alicent, she seems a lot smarter, right, in this second half of the season, but is she? Because she should have seen this coming, like, she had to know, A, that and she says it in this episode, like, she just now had the realization in this episode that her dad was using her as a pawn and moving her wherever
I,
he saw fit, but
it's one of those things that she knew to be true the whole time, but it takes someone like Renice to like call her out on it and be like, "Hey, like queen to queen kind of thing. Like you're just kind of a pawn in this whole thing.
right,
Like, why don't you like really think for yourself for a moment and like just picture yourself on the throne or something like that."
yeah,
So I think she's just mostly. It's not that she doesn't know; she's just naive to like the truth, much like her husband was. I mean, um, everyone kind of accepts their own truths here in the
yeah,
castle, and
yeah,
she just has this like naive sense of like family and what's honorable and right and what I know to be true. Meanwhile, it's like I'm just gonna ignore the fact that I wish I had a dad, but really he's kind of like a scumbag and was a shitty dad.
right, right. Yeah, I just, I think it's funny because coming into the show, I was under the assumption that the Targaryens were gonna be paralleled with the Lannisters, so Daemon and Rhaenyra. But
Yeah,
it's really the Hightower. Like, these guys are the shit show of the show, you know what I mean? These
yeah,
are the Lannisters. Like, they're horrible people so far, you know what I mean? And
yeah.
when you look at everything moving from the beginning of the show till now, I mean, yeah, the Targaryens had their moments of crappiness, but they are far well put together than these guys, especially the children on this side of the family.
Well,
Like,
The Targaryens, they're like individually, like as individuals, they have bad moments,
right.
but the High Towers as a whole are like a bad vibe. Whereas
Yeah.
like individually they're okay, but them as a whole, bad vibe. Whereas Targaryens as a whole, fantastic vibe. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. Individually, they have some rough moments.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
bound to happen when you ride dragons and
Right.
you're kind of generally prone to doing whatever you want. So
Yeah. I just
yeah, that's
thought
an.
go ahead.
Now I was gonna say it's just an interesting dichotomy between those two
Yeah.
main houses here.
Yeah, it really is. I just, I'm excited for the season finale because I'm not going to say that we're going to completely focus on the Targaryens fully for the episode because we did not see them in this episode at all,
Not a
which I thought
one.
was very interesting. But I hope that they show them well put together, like the tip of the
Right.
spear together. And that would be really cool because you would think the other side, this side should be the side that's all put together. They have the throne, they have the numbers probably. They have everything going for them, the money, the gold, everything. But inside of that pocket of this side of the family, they're all over the place, dude. The kids are shit shows. Aegon doesn't want to be a king. Aemond very clearly wants to be the king, and that I want to bring that up later on when we get further into the episode. But I hope they show that the Targaryen, because everything we've seen since the time skip, they're together. Like they're moving forward together. There's not
Kids
a
are on
lot of
board.
infighting. Yeah. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
yeah, the two Targaryens there, Rhaenyra and Daemon, are just like bounded by blood. Like they couldn't
Yep.
be more than one person at all. Like
Right.
they are the same person. And I think that goes back to your, what you said in terms of just they're not, they haven't seen war, right? They don't have experience. So in my mind, Otto plays this fancy boy game of like chess,
Yep.
and he's like on paper and like by word, like getting things in order. Whereas, like, yeah, you can have all these fancy lords in the throne room re-swear their loyalty to the next king and undo Rhaenyra. Cool, but at the end of the day, like, I'm thinking Damon is out there, like, he has the reach. Um, you know, they I think they have a more sort of plan to be like, yeah, no, let's get some tangible assets going,
Right.
because so far the high towers, all they really did was, bully some fancy lords in the castle, round up a bunch of people in King's Landing, and have like a fancy show. They
Right.
haven't done anything like tangible to be like assert their dominance. And that's why I think they look kind of really weak in the end of this episode.
Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
really pompous about, they're like, look at all we've done, but it's like not that easy.
It's
Like,
and it'd be interesting to see like how quickly that house of cards crumbles when war comes and not peacetime. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
think that the Hightowers are a very good high lad peacetime family. You know what I mean? They're good at the politics in peacetime, but I think it's going to be an utter shit show when the war comes to the doorstep. You know what I mean? Whereas I
yeah,
think the Targaryens are even their allies on that side are well more put together for war, right? And
yeah.
that's why, and we talked about it a little bit in earlier episodes with the dragon kind of misaligned. Like everything was aligned on that side for a long time until we
I
got a
think we can,
couple snippets over
yeah,
on the high tower side.
we completely forgot about Melee's and
Yeah.
Rhaenys's dragon. Like,
Yeah, totally forgot.
that
Yeah.
dragon's freaking awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, those are all great points because it's fragile. Their house of
Yeah, it really
cards.
is. It
It's
really
all
is.
just very for show, if
Yeah.
anything. Meanwhile, the Targaryens are quietly over at Dragonstone, like,
Yeah, they
we know it's coming. They know it's coming.
Yeah, and it's super interesting because they, like, theoretically don't even know the king's dead yet, right? Because
Nope.
we were wondering at the end of the last episode where they even were, if they did make it back to Dragonstone, or if they were still in the Red Keep.
I'd imagine they're still on the boats. Like, I don't know what the sail time is from like King's Landing to Dragonstone, but they probably got there like late that night. So, but a whole day passes here. Like they move
Yeah,
all the way into like a full 24 hours this episode takes place. And so, um, they go a full day just not knowing, rightfully so. But yeah, I think they'll pull it together really quickly.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and obviously Renice, she didn't leave because she gets kind of blocked in her room there.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think that on that side, her and Rhaenyra would be the infighting, but I think at the end of this episode, that infighting is maybe squashed because she saw what the High Towers did at the end, and she looks pissed at the end of the episode, right? Like she's
yeah,
not happy about all this going down, rightfully so. I mean, she kind of had a shitty episode, right? Being locked in a room
yeah,
for a majority of it.
she
So
redeems it.
I think yeah, but I think that the little bit of infighting that her and Rhaenyra had in the past, that was completely squashed with the way that the High Towers went about this whole thing. So they probably are in their head, they're setting up everything perfectly. But yeah, dude, I think that tip of the spear that's put together is going to crumble that house of cards real quick.
Yeah, definitely.
But we know the war lasts a couple years, so probably not real quick per se. But
I think they'll get a couple of good quick wins in there.
yeah,
That'll really be devastating for people. Um, and I don't know, might even get some switched up alliances here too.
yeah,
Like, there's a lot of open ended threads here.
absolutely.
Um, so yeah, so you know, first order of business is finding Aegon, the king to be, and essentially he's missing, and Otto sends Sir Eric with an E off to find him, who's his guard, or is it Sir Eric with an A? Because there's the Eric
There's
brothers.
two. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
two of them.
Eric
Yeah,
with an E and Eric with an A. I'm pretty sure
yeah.
Eric with the E is the sworn guard to Aegon.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I think are they identical twins as well?
Yep.
I think they're, yeah. So I couldn't tell the difference between them.
Yeah. So Aegon instructs him to go find him because good, good, good choice there. But drop the cloaks, complete stealth mission. Allison separately sends Cole naturally, and Aemon volunteers to go with them because he knows his brother. And they've hung out in the street of Silk, a few times, I'm sure. And this is where that like race momentum, this kind of like race to find Aegon, is happening in this episode, and they played out really well. And
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
the way they bounce between like those two groups moving through the streets of the city, and then kind of what's going on in the castle is just really good. And every time they go to the streets, they play that piano score, and
yeah,
it's
so
just so
good, man.
well.
Yeah.
And I will say every episode, I kind of just found this out. But every episode also has an extended like 20-minute the making of each
Oh,
episode.
really?
Yeah, it's
Like a
more it's
separate thing that you have to go into, or what?
yeah, it's a separate thing in the extras below the episode. But what it is basically like the after show, like 6 minutes where the showrunners talk, but they reuse that footage, but then put in a ton of like the set design,
Oh,
armor
that's cool.
design,
Yeah.
sword, like they talk about all that stuff, like the actual making and shooting of the show, which is really awesome. And there's a really good bit in there about Flea Bottom, and they went to an actual on-site location in Spain that they used from Game of Thrones, and like that's just why that looks so good because that's a legit real place in
Right.
Spain.
Yeah.
That like old streets and stuff, and it just looks so good. Like it
It
just
does,
instantly
man.
sends you there, and that's what they said. They're like, yeah, like this is
Yeah, you
Flea
can't.
Bottom.
Yeah, right. You can't 3D soundstage that. It wouldn't look right. And I think
Yeah,
maybe even on maybe some of the panning shots over top of it, or maybe that soundstage or whatever it's called. But
yeah, I'd definitely go watch that because they use such a variety of techniques, and it definitely is apparent once you know where they use it. So like the sept is the sound stage, the volume.
yeah.
Whereas like the Dragon Pit is just a giant like kind of warehouse set with all blue screen around them.
Oh, interesting.
So they use a basically everything at their disposal to get
Yeah.
creative and make it work. So
Yeah, that's cool.
um very cool. So definitely check those out. So but the bottom line is like we're getting this is all to show Aegon because we know Aegon's kind of like a shithead to begin with, but this is kind of like adult Aegon. He's a very absent father, husband, all that stuff. Absent, period. From
Right.
like,
Yeah.
well, here it's kind of like one team, being his brother and Cole, are like, let's go check out the street of Silk because that's where Aemond knew him to kind of hang out. Whereas Eric kind of has like a little bit more. They start there, but they're like, let's go to Flea Bottom because he's got some other habits. And essentially, the bottom line there is like he's got bastards that he then basically gives to the fighting pits in Flea Bottom, where these 10-year-old children just like ferally fight and claw with like filed teeth and sharpened
Yeah.
nails, and it's quite brutal. More
It
child
is, yeah.
violence in
More
the show.
child violence, yeah. Yeah, they're definitely leaning to the child violence. I will give him props, though. I think that where he's found in the show is radically different from the books. I think he is found in a much more, how do I want to say this, terrible location.
Hmm.
I don't know how they kind of hint at it a little bit in the episode. I can't remember the exact phrase when they're talking to the brothel keeper or whatever. She's like, he's less picky about his
L-
whatever. They hint
Less
at it a
like,
little bit.
yeah, not as like they're more open minded. They're not as discriminatory.
Yeah,
Wherever.
that's what it is. And yeah, in the books I think he's found like with a child if you pick
Oh,
up what I'm throwing. And
dang,
yeah, it was interesting that they changed it for the rightfully so. I think we
that's
don't need
probably
to see
fair.
it. Yeah, we don't really need to see that. You can
We can
hint
draw
at it.
lines some
Yeah, you
places.
can draw the line somewhere. But I find it interesting because I was comparing him to Joffrey, right? The parallel to the original show, but he
Yeah.
kind of gives me like he could go either way. He could go batshit crazy Joffrey or Robert, where he just doesn't really give a shit about being king. He doesn't want to be king. He wants to drink and whore around and doesn't really care about any of this stuff.
Yeah, and the thing is like you know you really want to peg him as we've seen him in earlier episodes where he's just kind of like a shit bag, you
Yeah.
know, just kind of whores around, right? He doesn't have he doesn't necessarily, it's weird because he doesn't have an outright thirst for like violence like Joffrey did. He's more kind of just like really into like the low life stuff.
Yeah.
So
Like Damon.
yeah, like
Yeah.
Damon. Well, yeah, like Damon. They're such a weird blend of each other because like
Yeah.
Damon's kind of like somewhere between Aemond and Aegon.
And Aegon, right? Yeah.
Um, but I could definitely see the Robert thing. But the cool thing they did with him in this episode is he kind of like comes out of it, and definitely when he's like named king, like he kind of is like reset, like which way is he gonna go, and I can't really tell what he's gonna be, what kind of king he's gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I can't tell either because he's saying multiple times through the show that he does not want this. This is not what he wants. He has no, what am I looking for? No interest in duty or whatever he says in this episode. And, it's interesting because that's kind of leans more towards Robert where,
Yeah,
like his need to exist died with the war and now he's just going to be a drunk. But it seems like at the end of this episode, he's kind of vibing with everything that's going on, right? Like he kind of falls into it. And Joffrey didn't have that thirst for blood until he became king. If you remember, he was a real pansy before he became king. But once he got
it,
that power, that
well,
all
I mean,
changed.
he had a thirst because he liked seeing violent things happen. Not that he ever really did anything violent. He was more of a sycophant for seeing,
Watching it, yeah.
watching it. So yeah, I don't know if Aegon here is like, what's he gonna do as his new? I think he'd liked being king. Obviously, anybody would, but it's like, what's he gonna become as
Right.
king?
Right.
And he
I mean,
definitely, the Erics don't seem very optimistic because they're like, man, he's a super big shit bag.
yeah, right, right.
But his
And they
mother
built
instills quite a bit of confidence in him at the same time.
yeah, but yeah, but I mean, Cersei did the same thing with Joffrey. So it's
Yeah,
like the parallels are a little bigger than we're giving credit for. Like this is
yeah,
really a Cersei, Joffrey, and Tywin situation we have going on here. It's
yeah,
very,
yeah.
very different.
Very.
So they either take that same route and make him a shitbag. I don't know how he is in the books. Maybe he is, or they take a different route. Maybe he's the more passive, just wants to get drunk while grandpa and mommy handle all the, business.
Yeah, and I will say I and you know obviously Allison's always paralleled with Cersei, but they are so different as characters, which is so great.
Yeah,
Like they are in the same role and same structure in their
right.
role and who they are in their character, but the way they are as like a
Very
person
different.
is so different.
Yeah,
I think that's so important to the show because the show is so familiar to what Game of Thrones is and like
yeah,
that show, but it's just so different because of the
absolutely.
characters. The characters are just phenomenal.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, so yeah, that's all. That's really a big part of the show is being like, hey, Aegon's missing. Let's kind of see more about Aegon and like what his night life is like, and the kind of the exposition here with the Erics kind of talking about him and exploring the real dirty stuff, but also we get exposition from Aemond to Cole about like how he studies the histories, the philosophies, the combat. He has the biggest dragon. Like on paper, like he should be king. Plus, he wants it.
Right.
So we get a lot of exposition there from not the people moving the pieces, but the pieces themselves being played.
Yeah.
And we get one that doesn't want to be put into the position he's being made, and the other one's like, I want to be that piece, because even Aemon says is like, when if and like when they come looking, I will be found.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this is what I wanted to bring up because we had discussed earlier of this guy maybe being a candidate for flipping sides, Aemond. And I think that's maybe even more pronounced in this episode where, I mean, he's not going to outright kill his brother to take the throne, right? He would have done it in this episode if that was the goal. So I think if that other side just offers him some sort of, after whatever, you'll be on the throne, it even lies to him about it, that this dude would flip pretty quick on his family. But I don't know, maybe
he's tough.
Maybe. Yeah.
He's pretty. Yeah. He likes his mom.
That's true.
Mom's a likable person. It's
right.
tough.
Yeah.
The future is uncertain.
Very uncertain.
So in this sequence, also Rhaenys is held captive in her quarters. She's confused. She can luckily, I like this, that her window looks out into the inner keep, like of the halls. Like I think that's so cool. I remember in college there was like one of the buildings had like an inner atrium, so there was windows that faced inward. I just always love that effect in buildings. So I just love that she had the little window and she could just see everybody scrambling,
scurrying around. Yeah.
And then also interesting, this is a real passable moment, but like servants are also being put in cells in this. So the castle very quickly becomes once again more foreign than it has ever been. Like it used to be a very vibrant place of like life and just activity, and then we got a more kind of like monastery look from it, and now it's kind of like a prison as the high towers lock it down 100%. Like no one can be trusted, button lipped. We get a lot of that. And Otto kind of briefly calls the lords to swear fealty to Aegon. We get basically, I think, 2 houses that are kind of like, nah, and they're escorted out. Yeah. And we've seen this guy before, Ray, the guy in black hair and the white beard. I don't know his name, but he's super hesitant to do so. And you can tell his intention is not to, but he watches it play out. And he's like, clear if I don't, like, I'm going wherever they're going. I need to at least get out of here. All the while, Larys is like closely watching the behavior of the lords during this moment from the side.
Yeah, I think that this guy's. Well, I thought this guy was going to be a very important character. Obviously, that didn't pan out quite like I thought, according to the end of this episode. But this guy is the guy that was like Team Rhaenyra from the beginning of the time jump specifically. I'm not sure if we saw him big 10-year time jump, maybe. But
I think it was at the tournament and the
he might have been
birthday party, like all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
He might have been at all that stuff, but we see him kind of, jokingly say something to Rhaenyra as she's walking the baby up the stairs in the first episode of the time jump. And she says, like, I might need your allegiance later down the road or something. And then he is actually the one that greets her when she comes back to King's Landing in the last episode. He was the only one that came out and greeted her. So he was fully Team Rhaenyra 100%. And you see that in this scene as he is pondering, not kneeling. But he makes the right... It was so weird because it's like, what do you just kneel and then dip out later? But unfortunately, that's exactly what he did, and it didn't pan out for him very well.
Yeah.
So it's just like, are these people so honorable that they won't lie for half a second so they can get out of a shitty situation?
Yeah, but I think he was already on the watch list because of all the other things you mentioned, and Larys was probably watching all of them. Poor guy. Punch on him is, he tried to leave and they drag him right back in. It's like, we're in such a hurry. And they kill him. Poor guy.
Yep.
Because he was going to go warn Rhaenyra. And we actually get to see the child fight pits, and Aegon's bastard, as I mentioned, and this is where we get the exchange between the Erics on how bad Aegon is, and then how Aemon tells Cole he wants to be king.
Right.
We get a nice scene, like the only Targaryen we really see, and that would be the king being wrapped, almost mummified, as
Yeah.
Alicent. And I like this scene is important because it shows kind of Alicent's, like, where her mind has been at, like, since the moment she woke up. Like, we need to like bury the king, right?
Right.
Like, I'm gonna go deal with my dead husband while you make me have to like play this game.
Yeah. And that kinda answers the question from last week that we were talking about where we didn't know if she, like, really loved him or cared about any of this crap, or she was just moving the pieces forward, and I think she did. I think 100% that comes out in this episode. She's focused on the as she has been in the entire show, following the path, the right path, the
Hmm.
honorable path. So I think that that got answered for me. I think that she is not as low and scummy as her dad comes
Correct.
across in this episode. And yeah, that's a big thing to answer because we were kind of questioning it last week, right? So
Yeah, because like we've said, like she's a hard one. She's been a hard one to place for a while. Like, is she really on board? Is she not on board? She just play like the good queen. So this episode really kind of shows that like she is kind of naive, nice, true. For as much as she kind of gets pulled into
right,
the mess that her family is, and really her
yeah,
father kind of puts on. And also, I mean, back at the small council meeting in the morning, like she's like, we can't just kill Rhaenyra.
yeah,
Like her father, my husband, absolutely would not want that. So she's very much on this whole like, we will give them terms. Like, there's a way to handle this. Like, yes, Aegon needs to go on the throne, but we can't just murder
right,
people.
right. And
Um,
I do really like her and her father's interaction where he calls that like a weakness, and she's like, aversion to murder is not a weakness or whatever. Not
yeah,
wanting to murder people is not a weakness.
yeah, and it all comes like there's lots of like touch. Like, I like how there's like sets of threes like in these
Yeah,
scenes. So like you stack them all up and you get like the whole picture, and that kind of all plays out in that last scene where she kind of lays out her terms. And he's like, just gotta kill people, and she's like, no, that's kind of messed up, Dad.
yeah,
You really are upsetting me with your absolute not zero care for like human life. Or
right, right,
and
yeah,
her big thing is like she's so loyal to Viserys and like his wishes, like even though she misunderstands his one very important wish,
yeah,
all the rest like are all very much intact.
right.
Whereas like Otto just like doesn't care. Like, King's dead, cool. Like, he's old news. Like, let's move
Yeah,
on.
and it's super interesting because really, even last episode, she was still kind of at least talking that she was on Rhaenyra's side. Like she says, "You'll be a
Yeah.
good queen" or whatever.
Yep.
So it'd be interesting to know what would have happened if that Aegon conversation with the king at the end of the last episode never happened. Like, do you think that
Oh yeah.
she wouldn't have wanted Aegon, and she would have had more infighting with her father on the topic, because she
Yeah.
has not really been vocal about wanting Aegon to get the throne up until this episode where it's kind of forced upon her.
Yeah. Cause she's stuck in this idea where she believes she is doing the right thing. But the problem is the right thing is unfolding in a completely the wrong way. And
Right.
so she's like, I'm not going to protest that, but I'm going to protest like the way we go about it. Now,
Yeah.
yeah, if that conversation never happened, and yeah, and they kind of sprung that like, all right, let's get to work. Without this like convenient bit of news from Allison, yeah, how much pushback would she have had, and how much could she have had? Because they clearly left her out of it in the first place.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, yeah.
they maybe because of this conversation and her indirect inclusion into this plot, that Otto just brought her in, right? They probably would have cut her out of it
Yeah.
altogether if it was
Yeah,
never said, because she wouldn't
absolutely.
have. she would have been resistant
Oh, for
to a
sure.
lot of
Yeah, definitely.
things.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's the good one apparently here in this family. Poor Allison. Um,
Right.
really cool scene though, because Allison then puts on her um, big girl pants and she heads to Renice to have a conversation with her and really try to flip Renice to their side. So much like how the Otto had the Lords swear their fealty, she's like, Renice, like, listen, I know we've had our differences and all that stuff, but you know, you should be on our side for this. And Renice kind of like she stands her ground. She's like, the words of my family are not fickle, or my house are not fickle. And she makes the same stand that a couple lords did to Otto, and it's like,
Yeah.
no, we made an oath, and like we are not oath breakers. And she made her stand with Rhaenyra in the prior episode, so they have a really good conversation in terms of back and forth, trying to convince each other of different things. And Allison has like the good like push most of this, but at the end, Renice kind of flips it, and it's kind of like you're just kind of getting played by all the guys around you. You're just a
Yep.
pawn to them, and also, have you never like envisioned like you are like, listen, lady, you're in the position to be on the Iron Throne. Like you could
Right.
if you wanted to.
Right.
You ever think about it? And that
Yeah.
puts a whole different like set of ideas in Allison's head, particularly the one about like she's just been a pawn the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's interesting because who knows? We are liking to think that this entire war is going to be Rhaenyra versus Alicent, right? It's
Hmm.
seemingly what they've built up, but Alicent is the one good, like you said, the one good person in this family on this side that still has a soft spot seemingly for Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
So, you know, is she the one that maybe jumps ship to the other side and tries to fix the mess that she's spun?
Well, I mean, that's a good point that I'll just forward to like the end of the episode. Maybe that, and I know people like it's been memed in terms of like, oh, this all could have not happened. Should one thing have went differently at the end of the episode?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
maybe that was because they had a definite like mother to mother link there, and you know, I think that was Renice like giving her the opportunity to like either fix the situation or see something different in it. And I'm totally behind Renice and just not like torching the whole royal
yeah.
family
I am
because
too. Yeah,
as Tyrion once said, like you can't just kill lords and
right.
ladies on a
Yeah,
whim. You can't just burn them alive like
yeah, and
Daenerys
in
did.
front of the entire city, basically, that we're all forced to go into that into the dragon pit there. So, yeah, I don't understand. First off, her armor's awesome. I have no idea where she got it. We'll go with dragon like saddlebags maybe that he the dragon's got on him. But
Yeah, you keep
yeah,
all that in the on the dragon.
right. I get that people are upset that she didn't just torch the whole room, but she's not like that would go totally against her character. She's not just gonna
Did they not
mass
want
burn.
like 3 more seasons?
Right, right. Yeah, this would have ended very shortly if we just burnt everybody on the stage there. But yeah, I think that man, I lost it. I don't remember what I was gonna say. Yeah, go
Her
ahead.
armor's awesome, and she's right for not burning all of them right there because
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, that was it, like, I did think the same thing, that it was like a mother to mother moment where they were like she was like, "Here, I'm dipping, and you know where I'm going. So you either fix this or we're gonna be coming back with the dragons," right?
yeah.
So, yeah, wouldn't have made any sense whatsoever for any fire to come out of the dragon's mouth in that scene, and I think it made it far more tense, that
Oh,
entire
yeah.
moment as
I mean,
well.
that and that's the other thing, like, the Hightowers thought they were done. They thought they were torched. Like, they
Yeah,
thought they were toast, and
yeah,
that's just, like that's, I think, their naiveness in, like, the situation, in terms of, like, they kinda just, like, turn over really
yeah.
easily,
That's what
when
I'm saying,
presented with danger.
yeah, that's what I'm saying, when the war comes knocking, man, like, I don't think they're gonna be very good at the whole war side of this world that we're building and the story that we're building. And you see that there where Alicent is face to face with the dragon and pretty much just closes her eyes and accepts her fate, what she thinks is going to be her fate. So yeah, it's House of Cards, man. That's all it is. And it's
Yeah.
going to crumble. I think it's going to crumble pretty quick, and they're going to crumble under the pressure of war. But
Yeah. I think that whole last bit there is all explained by this conversation that they have in Rhaenys's bedroom.
yeah,
It's really the continuation and end of that conversation.
yes,
Because to call back to it, Allison leaves. She's like, I'll leave you to decide. And this was Rhaenys deciding. Like, there's her answer. So once again, really good writing
yeah,
on their part.
yeah,
Um, so Cole and Aemond then stumble upon very conveniently a rather public meeting in Flea Bottom, though I doubt the Erics and Otto expected anyone else to be lurking around.
right,
But they witnessed the meeting of the Erics, Otto, and the White Worm. And that's where we get that exposition where they first meet. She really wants the end of the child abuse in Flea Bottom, rightfully so. So she has good intentions with her ambitions. Is like, let's clean up the city, let's not do child fighting.
right,
So cool flip on her character, and that kind of like goes back to like what she told Damon. Like, she's not in this for anything people think she's in it for. She kind of has a slightly good nature about her.
yeah,
So I thought that was an interesting layer. Whereas like that came out of left field for me. I'm like, that's kind of legit trade. Otto, can you
right,
just like, I'll give you stupid ass Aemon if you just kind of look into the whole child
yeah,
fighting pit thing.
yeah, right, yeah. I thought that she was going to be a much bigger character. She was maybe the only character that got a character spotlight prior to the show that doesn't
Right.
really have that many scenes. And I think she's going to be much bigger moving forward. I think we've built
Yeah.
the web around her, which is going to be a big part. I gotta be honest, man. I still can't stand her accent. It sounds horrendously terrible. So if that's her actual accent, I apologize. But if it's not, she really needs to get with like a accent specialist and work on it a little bit because it just I feel like that's what I would sound like if you told me to do that accent.
You're gonna feel really bad when that's like her
When it's an
actual.
actor
Yeah.
accent, probably, yeah. I mean, I feel
Um,
like in my mind, I can tell that it's not, you know what I mean? Like, you can
right.
just tell that it's just something is off on it, and it has to be that she's just not good at doing it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, like, is it a Jar Jar Binks effect thing
Yeah,
going
that's it.
on,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
or is this some sort of like honest attempt at some sort of dialect of like
Yeah,
broken common language?
yeah, and I think
So
it could be. I think it definitely
it was
could be
better
it.
in this, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Her
I
on
would
her
agree.
own and just kind of like her more limited dialogue and just like kind of giving the more her exposition's a little bit more meta to Otto, where it's like, I do these things, you do those things, and we can make this work. As that sort of character, I think it works better. But when
Yeah,
she's just kind of like hanging out with Damon
yeah,
and
it
like
doesn't.
they're, together, like it doesn't make a lot of sense where she has more dialogue like Rhaenys or Alicent or any of them would have.
Right.
So maybe if it kind of just sticks in like a very high level, master whispers
Yeah.
tone, I
Like
think
a
it's
lowborn trying to play with the highborn type of
yeah,
deal, right? Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, this is I think important, like you said, because this shows Otto's now direct connection to her, and this is kind of like the birth of the whole underbelly of Westeros and the whole
Yeah.
spy game when it comes to this, because up until now it didn't really exist. So it's kind of birthed out of Otto as the buyer of the information, um, the White Worm as kind of the creator or the collector of information. But then you
Yeah.
have Laris, who is then the third wheel to that, who operates in and around it,
Right.
who benefits from it. So they're kind of like the original three, if you will, 200 years before that web just gets ridiculous in Game
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
Thrones.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point.
And then, yeah, so basically she's got him tucked away, very much like she had Damon tucked away, but she literally tucked him away in the Sept.
Yeah.
Um, and that's where the Eric Bros find him. And the Sept here, it is in the volume, and you can tell because it looks a little weird, but it's a very big space, and this is not the same Sept of Baylor. They
Right.
confirmed
Right.
this
Yeah.
is a different one, and it was cool though. He was kind of stashed away in the Sept. I don't know how she got him in there or who got him in
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Is he drugged in there, or is he
I
in
think
there
he's
of
drugged
his
'cause he woke
own?
up. She's like,
Okay.
"Where is she?"
Right.
Like
Yeah, yeah.
I think he's a little traumatized by the
Right.
by the. Hey,
But that's
maybe
like that's a hell of a power move for her to
yeah,
kidnap the prince and hold him basically at ransom, right?
yeah,
Now, I maybe would have went for a little bit more than she went for. You know what I mean?
yes,
I get she gets like maybe a bag of gold there as well.
yeah. But she also gets
Bag of
Otto's
something.
ear,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and
yeah,
she
you
just
get a
helped.
good point.
Yeah, she basically was a couple things like, "Hey, do this thing for me." Seems petty compared to like the things you normally deal with Otto. Like you can easily fix this for me,
Right.
which makes you think you make me happy. Um, I get to talk to you and meet you, and you get to understand that I am like the head of this organization.
Yeah.
And she's just she's elevating her profile. That's really
Right.
what this whole was about. She doesn't, yeah, like obviously she would have been overstepping, I think, if she was like, yeah, give me like all the gold and whatever else I want. Like Otto would not have been too pleased with that.
Really? I mean, I don't think he would have had much choice, to be honest with you. Like, she's got the prince.
Yeah,
If
but
you're
I think
trying
that
to forward this big agenda that you got going, and the one dude that can
true.
forward that agenda is missing, I'm gonna be asking for a little bit more than a little bag of money and you to check on the kid fighting.
Yeah, I think she wanted to be in his good graces and just
Yeah,
elevate her
that's
profile.
that's probably more likely what it was for sure.
Yeah. Um, but I thought this was really cool though, because as they're coming out of the sept with him, we got Cole and Eamon kind of like ninja rogues, just like
Yeah.
hiding in the like they ambush him, and Cole and Eric get into the sword fight. Aegon or Eamon chases after Aegon. Eric's brother, not to be confused,
Right.
really stays out of it, and he's been very kind of standoffish through this whole like segment, and this is kind of alluding to the fact where he's like, I'm really not interested in like getting Aegon for anybody.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
this dude sucks.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like not a good play for a king. Like, could he have just died instead?
Right.
So fun little bro to bro like fight, like very, very intense, just kind of like brother scrap,
Yeah. Yeah, I
spitting in
love
each
it.
other's face and
Yeah.
just like throwing each other around on the ground. Cole naturally bests Eric. Cole just so good at everything, I guess.
Yes, he is.
So much practice. So and then brother Eric, he slips off. Um, there's an interesting. This is that discussion we talked about, and I kind of summed it up as that Otto and Allison kind of discussed the Game of Thrones from like a meta concept, and there are
Right.
two differing approaches to it. Otto, straight, just like ruthless, very Tywin by the book, like whatever needs to be done.
Yep.
Many a king would have, all killed as many people as possible to save everyone else or whatever's best for the realm. And she's just kind of like, we can't just kill people. Like, we need to be somewhat respectful of like how we operate. This, I think, more rooted in her actual finding of religion of the seven,
Right. Yes.
um,
Yeah.
where she's kind of tries to sticks to it a little better. Cole kind of hides behind it because he's a psychopath, but he's still
Yeah.
kind of like, you know, this brothel, like heavens forbid, like what are we doing
Right.
here? Like he was
Yeah.
so off put by that.
Right.
Um, but yeah, this was a cool scene just because they are discussing the Game of Thrones and they even use the word game in it. And I just
Yeah.
thought that was very
So
cool.
cool. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that scene's really, really good, but, I mean, this is always a good point, like, he makes it here, like, the and Tywin made it with the Red Wedding as well, like, why is it better to or why is it worse to kill a couple people at a wedding than to, let tens of thousands of people die in a
Hmm.
war? And
Yeah.
Otto has the same kinda thinking here, and I think they're kinda right to a point, right? Like, I feel like I get that it's maybe the less honorable thing to go and murder the person that's supposed to take the throne, but is it better to save the tens of thousands of people that are gonna die in the war for the throne? Probably, right?
Yeah, so I think that whole philosophical argument kind of relates to the idea of tyranny or like more democracy. So it's like the Taiwanado method is very tyrannical in terms of like
Yeah.
unknowingly we're just going to murder, kill, and like just do whatever we need to do to win. Kind of in the shadows or behind closed doors. So it's behind closed doors idea
Yeah.
versus Allison's way is like if we have a war, I mean a war is a war, and at least everyone is very transparent in terms of what we're fighting for and about, opposed to just kind of blindly killing people.
Yeah, I but I
It's a tough one.
yeah.
It's like where does it stop though? If you are just going to kill like the one family, what stops you from just killing anybody that gets in your way?
True. True. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I just feel like, cutting the head off of the snake versus waiting for, you know, tens of thousands of snakes to
Yeah,
fight in a pit is the better option in most cases. Even if it is slightly tyrannical, it's maybe better for humanity to just kill a couple people before they kill thousands, right?
yeah. I mean, yeah, and I guess to relate to like either you're trading publicly on Wall Street or you are getting the inside information behind closed doors that
Yeah.
lets you win everything and make all the
Right.
best trades. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
true. Yeah.
it's like, yeah, that's the better means to an end, but it's also not fair.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Right.
and I guess amongst like nobles, like how are they supposed to trust that they don't ever go to like a function and not be plotted against to be murdered?
Right.
'Cause that's
True.
the whole thing in Game of
Yeah.
Thrones is, like, you don't kinda kill 1 guests, 2 people at their, like, own wedding, like, that was just a huge taboo,
Yeah.
um, and I think that's the taboo, and it goes back to, Tyrion's point of you can't just kill lords, like,
Right.
people of these houses, like, they are kind of sacred,
Yeah.
um, so, yeah, lots of very paradoxical arguments to be made there. Because at the same time, then you have the argument of, like, what makes these lords so much more important than like the common person too.
Right. Right. They were born in the right spot. That's the
Hmm.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, plenty of just common people would be like, yeah, cool. Whole family royals died, and we
Yeah.
didn't all die with them. Cool.
Yeah, right.
As long as the water's running and the lights are on, I guess
Yeah. And the mead's flowing, who cares,
mead's
you know?
flowing. Someone's putting out my burning down house. Like we still got
Right.
basic services. Like
Yeah.
we're all right. We're all right. Um, and now to the most awkward moment in this episode.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I guess we learn very, very fickle motivation. I really hope this isn't like his cash in for like what he said earlier, like a couple episodes ago, where it's like, I hope this pays off for me
No.
later.
No, I hope not, but maybe, dude. I don't know.
But for
Like,
some reason, this became like some sort of enticing thing that she needed to do to keep him
yeah.
talking.
Yeah, I guess, and she's so chill about first off, it was so awkward because I was wondering, like, at first I was like, "Okay, why'd she put her feet up on the thing?" Like, that's just
Oh, I knew where
awkward,
that was
right?
going.
Did you know right from the get I had no
I
idea where
didn't
it
think
was
it would
going.
go that far, but I was like, because they highlighted his like messed up feet like
Right.
crippling in, and then
Yeah.
like I was like, okay, maybe he just likes to look at the queen's feet. He has
Yeah.
a foot fetish thing, but I didn't think they would go the whole 9 yards there.
Oh, yeah. I didn't see it coming really until even after she took her socks off, I didn't see it coming. Like,
Oh, right.
I thought she was just, like, getting ready for bed,
Right.
and while they were talking. But yeah, it took a real quick freaking turn immediately. Yeah, I don't know. It does give him the creepiness factor that he really already had. You know what I mean? Foot fetish,
Yeah.
that's real creepy shit, right? So I get that they wanna give him that creep factor, but yeah, just it was like an awkward HBO scene, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, just for the sake of it.
Yeah, there's that, and I guess, like, the interesting thing there is, like, how does that affect him as a character and, like, what his motives are? Like, is that just kind of like a throwaway?
Right.
What's that gonna lead to later? Like, what does that mean? Like, we already know
Yeah.
his motives were to gain, favor of the queen because obviously that's a good person to have on your side and be on her side. But to just like make it one more level of awkward, be like, hey, can you just like show me your feet like one day?
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
this escalate over time where it just really got to an awkward point where she just kind of
Right.
was
I
okay
it's
with it. It was
yeah,
very bizarre.
it's very bizarre because he already had the creepy factor going on. He was
He had
nailing the
that.
creepy factor.
Yep.
So we didn't need the foot fetish to elevate that creepy factor anymore. Like, he already had it going on.
And
So I don't know. Maybe
it
it
puts
is
her in
more
a realm of,
important.
like like, I kinda question her now too. I'm like, "Why are
Yeah.
you, like
Yeah, she's just,
just
like,
tell
so
him to,
chill.
like just be like, "Tell me what I need to know, weirdo.
Right.
I'll
Yeah.
send you, like, like, a painting of my feet,
Yeah.
and you just keep that."
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. She's just she's super chill about it. I don't feel like I
She's
mean,
not
really
okay with it, but she is
no.
going along with it.
She is definitely going along with it, and she at least turns away from him while he does his thing. But, like, is he that important to her that she's willing
Right,
to just like, I feel like he's not.
right.
But
Like, somewhere I felt like she would have exerted her queenly power to be like, "Listen, slime ball, like, just
yeah,
tell me or just, like, buzz off, like, I could care less," but
right,
there must have been something that went from like, "Hey, I'm just gonna help you out because I wanna gain your favor," to like, "Hey, I wanna help you out, but can you also help me out?" Kinda like, what was the motivation for her to go down that road with
right.
him? That's the
Yeah,
bizarre
yeah.
thing, like,
Yeah,
there
I
has to be
agree.
more there in terms of what he's told her or done for her to
Yeah.
warrant that kind of, like, surrender of
Right.
privacy, whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that y you have to assume that she maybe feels like she doesn't have anyone on her side, so she's
This is
got
true.
Cole and him, really. So, at the current moment, whatever, she needs to do to keep this dude on her side, and he has proven to be a useful tool, even though she maybe didn't want what he ended up doing to his entire family, right? She didn't order
Yeah.
that, but she sees that he's got no filter, like he literally murdered his family.
Yep.
So, you know,
Maybe she's scared of
powerful
him.
tool. Maybe she is scared of that could be it too. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he's just
Absolutely.
creeped to the max, and she is kind of, like, alone. She is like she could tell Cole, but Cole would just straight murder him, and that kinda defeats the purpose of Laris.
Yeah, and we don't know that, they should have maybe thrown in like a blackmailing dialogue beforehand
Right.
where he's like, so he was it, "Take your socks off, or I'm gonna tell everybody that you told me to kill the Strong family," you know? It's just
Instead he
something like that to
Yeah. Instead, he's just
get
like, "You know why your dad always has the one up on
yeah.
you? Let me tell you why." It's just like, man,
So
like, this is
weird,
just
man.
so weird.
It's so odd. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's where we basically get the background on, like, he knows all about the network, and, like, that's how Otto's always got a one up and basically like with very few words agrees to his offer of taking out the head of the whole network of spies.
Yeah.
Maybe that's payment, but like I expected his price to be higher. Um, I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah. They're
um,
gonna have to add some more, and
yeah,
I'm sure we're gonna get more on that whole scene. I'm sure it's not as a throwaway scene in this kind of even in the original show, there wasn't a lot of throwaway shit,
Yeah.
especially weird stuff like this. Like, there's
Yeah.
something more going on here. It's just we
Weird.
need more context.
More context, please.
Yeah.
Of all the things going on in this episode, this was just like really out of left field for me.
Dude,
I
it
was like,
really
what is
was.
happening?
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you for adding another layer to this cake that I
Right.
did not need. So
It's the
I want,
it's the feet. You're thinking of the feet. You can't even
thinking
think
of the
to
feet.
talk.
That dude weirds me out.
Yeah, dude, so creepy.
But I did want to point out that at this point, we very much have another situation of Viserys and Daemon, where we have the brother that doesn't want the throne and the brother that very much wants the throne.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
really should and shouldn't have it too. Because
Right.
while Viserys shouldn't have had the throne for the same reasons Aegon shouldn't have it, Viserys was just disinterested, was more into philosophies and being kind of like a Targaryen nerd.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Damon kind
definitely.
of fits the same Aemon hallmarks of kind of like, a Targaryen conqueror king, like getting shit
Right.
done and kind of the bringing the life to the family. So,
Yeah, and I think that's why we're going to see, or at least I think that we're going to
uh-huh.
see Damon and Aemon kind of connect a little bit more in probably future seasons. At this point, we're not going to get it this season, but I think that they have a very same outlook on the way the Targaryens should be
Mhm.
as a family. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we've gotten plenty of exposition in this show from multiple families about the second son syndrome. So like Damon's the
Yep.
second son. Um, we have the Valerian second son. He was much
Brothers
lamer.
that were kings. I mean,
Brothers that were
there's yep.
kings. So these two fit the bill, and perhaps Aegon really kind of owns it up, and Aemon's hoping he doesn't. Kind of like not that he isn't king, but he's much more passable and
Right.
malleable. But
Yeah.
maybe Aegon's going to be a little bit more forthright with being king, and that's going to rub Aemon the wrong way. And hard to say, but
Yeah.
it's set up already, so
Yeah, definitely.
they're going to
Yeah.
play off that.
Yeah, I agree.
So we see Eric with an A show back up and he breaks Renice out of her room. And he's like, we're going to take you out here quietly. We're not going to make a scene. They're going to expect you going back to the dragon pit and get your dragon. And she's like, I really think I want my dragon.
Yeah, rightfully so, right? Yeah.
Melees. And he should know better. Like, yeah, I get what you're trying to do, dude, but the best thing you could ever do is put a Targaryen on a dragon.
Yeah,
Like, if
right,
that's your move,
right.
because it's not like we can do sneak her back into the city later for her to get her dragon.
Yeah,
Like, no, like she's either going to get her dragon or die. Like, that's
yeah.
kind of
It
her
makes no
thing.
sense, and it also makes like, does he not know that that's where maybe he doesn't. He probably
He
doesn't
might not
know
know
that
that. No.
everybody's heading to the dragon pit. Like,
I
no
don't think he
one's gonna
knows.
see her, bro. Like, there's thousands of people up there. She could
Yeah, he didn't
easily
know
get in
that.
there. So, yeah, it's just I was like, dude, like, she's not gonna dip out without her dragon. And I
Yeah.
was kind of thinking, like, does she dip out without her dragon? Is like this dragon going to be up for grabs for the high towers to even out the dragons a little bit more? But
And that's the great thing about her character in this episode is because you kind of think that for her character so far in the series is she's like kind of very passable,
very passive. Yeah, yeah.
passive person that isn't really kind of dramatic in that sense. And she would kind of just sneak out.
Right. Yep.
Joke's on us.
Yeah.
She is still a Targaryen. And it's still very early morning on the day of the ceremony of the new king. And I believe this is the White Worm's headquarters getting burned down. The balcony looked familiar. I think that was Varys or Laris burning down because
Okay.
it looked like
Yeah,
the
I
same
was confused.
hooded dudes. One
Yeah.
hooded guy looked like the same setup as Harrenhal.
Yeah, I was confused because we do see the hooded guy there. I thought that I'd recognized that place from something. Maybe
Hmm.
that's what it was. Maybe we've seen it earlier. But yeah, I did get a little confused of what it was like. I could have used a little bit more context to what the hell was burning.
A little bit more.
Because it was kind of gelling into everything else going on as well. So I was like, is that they're just like forcing everybody to go, and whoever's not going and they're burning their shit down, or what's going on here? You know?
Right. Yeah, the hooded person did it for me, but also using my Assassin's Creed brain and, like, just knowing maps of, like, ancient cities, I was like, location-wise in the city, opposite the keep
Right.
and, like, far off on the other side, the balcony really did it for me. I think that was in, like, an earlier scene where she was, like, standing on the balcony looking over,
Yeah.
so enough context clues there if you're really paying attention. I'm pretty sure that was the White Worm residence. Not that she's dead, but
No, yeah, I don't think she's
attempted
dead.
hit apparently
Right.
from Laris. He does not mess around. As soon as he gets an opportunity to tell his guys to go burn someone alive, like he's all about it. He
Yeah,
got
and
his foot rub in for the evening, and he's ready to for some action.
yeah, and it's interesting because it's more infighting in the high towers, right? Like where it's more infighting. So they've got, Otto's got his web. Allison's got her what toes maybe we'll go with.
Well,
um,
it's web toes. It's
web
very
toes, yeah.
well. That's a good point because it's very interesting that he is propelling the divide between her and her father. So that's obviously going to be important because he also tells Otto, like, he's like, "Oh, you spent a lot of time with the queen lately." He's like, "There's no reason that can't be helpful to you some point in the future." So I don't know if he was just like misdirecting Otto, or he's gonna he's got his own agenda and he's gonna start playing the two most powerful people in the castle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, chaos ladder. This is the first maybe iteration of that
He
line of
wrote it.
thinking. Yeah, he wrote it. So, um, yeah, I just think it's super interesting, dude. A war between the spies sounds badass. So I'm here for it. Less
Man,
less feet stuff, maybe. We
yeah.
don't need that. Let's just,
Though that kind of makes him Littlefinger creepy too, because Littlefinger had
yeah,
the whole like Sansa creep thing going
right,
on.
right.
So he's
This
kind of
makes it
back to
more this makes it more creepy, to be honest with you, I think, than
right.
than Littlefinger.
Yeah. I just like that there's no like copies of characters. Like they're
They're
all
all
very
very
different.
different. Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
so good for them. So anyway, morning breaks, and obviously Renice is, they run through the streets, and that's when the city watch is rounding up. Basically, hey, local citizens, I know it's early, but we have something to show you. So everyone, forcibly walk your ass this way. Obviously, I just think that's an interesting concept when it's like, hey, obviously word spread that there's a big event in the Dragon Pit, and I'm sure everyone's just clamoring to go. But at the same time, they're kind of like being herded like
Being
cattle.
forced. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So that's always been an interesting concept in these times where it's like, hey, all of our fellow people, we need you for this important thing, which we don't really care that you're actually there. We just need bodies.
Right. Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, they wanna put on a show,
Yep.
right? I would assume. They want to show everybody who the new king is also the case. They wanna get the population adjusted to their new king. But yeah, it's very forced, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
and you said last week in the preview that they were like they looked like they were coming to burn the place down or whatever.
Yeah.
And it does look like that. It does look like that because they're all being seemingly forced to go into this pit. But then they're all like super chill through the whole thing and like clapping and happy and
Oh yeah, you get to
super
see
odd.
the royal family and all
That's
that
true.
jazz. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they get there, you're on board, and it's kind of like when you go to a concert or like a big show, like you're not super happy about the super cramped conditions of being part
Right.
of the pack. But once you get there and the basketballs are flying around, the football's
Yeah.
going through the air, like you're good.
Yeah.
Um,
It is like,
Floor seats cost extra, but unfortunately
right.
those were not the seats to have.
Not
And
the seats to have, definitely. Yeah, and, oh man, I had a thought. I lost it. Go ahead. I'll think about
okay.
it.
But yeah, so Vernice takes advantage of this situation and she's like, Dragon Pit party at the Dragon Pit. No one's gonna notice me walking in there, so we're going that way.
Yeah. I think okay, I got my thought. There's no funeral for the king. Is it like this is what you do first: is you crown the new king, and then there's the funeral. How'd it work in reality here recently? Was there the
Um,
funeral first, and then the
yes. Yeah, I
funeral
think
was first?
the proper thing when you have, like, very official, like, transparent, um, successions is like, "Hey, everyone, calm down. Gonna bury the dead one,
Right.
and then we're gonna have, like, a happy party and crown the new one," because
Yeah.
there's no question or underhandedness going on here. And that's probably part of, like that's the whole get up that, like, Allison's upset about is, like, all these plans have to happen right now because this is shady.
Yeah, right. It just feels so scummy, dude. It feels so
Yeah.
scummy to he's dead and they're
Hurry,
literally
hurry,
like, "Okay,
hurry,
yeah, moving on."
hurry,
Like
hurry,
not
hurry.
focusing at all on the dead king. And there was
Right.
no like there were no bells going off. I don't
There
think
were
in the
some bells.
episode to were there to announce
Yeah.
the death of the king. Okay.
Oh, I don't know about the death of the king. Really, they never really announced the death of the king until Otto says it at the coronation of Aegon.
Yeah.
Because basically that was the news to everyone. Because everyone's like, because like he's standing there like, very sad day. King died. Meanwhile, let's get
Yeah.
happy. And that's the whole other thing is just like Otto, like he just has the wrong tone. Like you
Yeah,
said,
he
it's just
does.
scummy. It's just
Yeah, it's
scummy at this
very.
thing where it's
Yeah.
like, hey, here's where we're at. We're gonna do this thing really quickly. Let's keep the show rolling.
Yeah.
And then also you get like, my God, I hate Cole so much because like he even for whatever reason gets to say like a few lines and
Yeah.
he gets the cap the session and then he gets to say Aegon the King and I'm
Right.
like, dude, you suck. Get off
Yeah.
stage.
Yeah,
Boo. Who
yeah,
is
why
this
like,
guy?
you feel like Otto would have been the proper one to say that, right? Not the Lord
Lord
Commander of the
Commander.
Kingsguard.
Yeah, he is pretty important now, I guess.
I get that, but not that important.
I know. I was like, why does he get to say this stuff? He
Right.
sucks.
Yeah.
Um, but before that, Allison gets her moment with Aegon coaching him in the carriage, and this is like basically the whole point. It's like she was just like, you need to be like a good king, right?
Right.
Like, don't be a sleazeball. And I just like how he ends that whole like he gets very his interest is piqued when she like gives him the dagger, and it's like kind of real to him. He's like, don't mess with me, mom. Like, don't play with me. And then he's
Yeah.
like, do you love me? And she just calls him an imbecile,
Yeah.
because he's an idiot.
Right.
So that was an interesting scene, but this was her attempt to like get her claws into him and just like try to salvage the situation and be like, you're a total disaster. Your grandfather sucks.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna make a really good attempt here to be like, please be a good king. And
Right.
Cersei did the same thing. She was like, try not to murder everyone,
Yeah,
Joffrey.
didn't pan out well for her. And I don't know, like we said earlier, I don't know where I'm gonna because when he's walking into this Colosseum or the Dragon Pit here,
So
he looks
badass.
scared shitless, kind
Oh
of,
yeah.
right? I love his getup, the armor, the Targaryen logo on his
Love
armor
how
and
he
stuff is
walks
super cool.
in
Yeah. I love the swords up and then they're like going down as he's
behind
walking through
him.
them. Super cool. But yeah, he looks scared shitless through the whole thing. Doesn't want to
Yeah.
be there by the looks of it, right?
Yeah. And speaking of Targaryen, like adornments, it's very nice of Alicent to make it very apparent to her father, like this is going to be a Targaryen situation. Like he's going to get Aegon's crown, he's going to get
Right.
Aegon's sword.
Yep.
Targaryen, 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 because this is remember not Hightower
Yeah.
dynasty. This is my husband who just died this morning's dynasty. So like
Right.
she's really trying to reiterate that like, Dad, I get it. Like you would just call him Aegon Hightower if you absolutely could.
Right. Yeah, and I think that we also have to remember that Otto is also a second son, I believe, right?
Is he?
So yeah, because his brother is the one that is the whatever the seat in Old Town is for the High
Oh,
Towers. So the entire show is full with second sons that aren't getting what they want, right? We have Damon, we have Aemon, we have Otto, clearly, who's now trying to do that for himself. He's putting a puppet head up there is what I think in his head he's thinking.
Yeah.
Aegon is going to be the puppet head for him to do his deeds. But I don't think it's going to pan out that way. Like we said earlier, I don't know which way Aegon's going to go here.
Well, you making that point makes me think that Aegon's kind of going to go off of the more Joffrey route, and he's not going to listen to anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes the most sense, right? But there is war looming as well because of this entire situation that we're talking about right here, the way that they're usurping the throne essentially. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's just,
yeah. I mean, all the that's the other cool thing about this is there's all the palace intrigue and you have the power players there, but at the end of the day, a bunch of these characters are going to get in the back of dragons. And that's going to be a very primary motivation for how the conflict unfolds, because it's not like Otto's going to be like, I'm going to get on my dragon, I'm going to go be a badass. No, Aemon's going to get on his dragon and he's going to do something badass.
Yeah.
And Aegon can do that too. So it's how are they going to assert their power and what they want to do, because they can ride dragons, because Aegon is actually king, because Aemon is actually a badass, things like that. Not because Grandpa can use real fancy words and write letters.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think that
grandsire. Sorry, I like that term better.
Grandsire. Yeah,
I want to be known as a grandsire.
Yeah, I also really want to know, did we ever talk about, because the titles for the king are slightly different in this? There's one more King of the First Men, the Raynor or something like that, and the Andals. That's taken out in Game of Thrones, the Raynor, or however you say it. Did we ever figure out who the hell that is, or why they were taking out of the titles in the original show? I'm very curious about it. It's been said multiple times through the show. It's not in the original titles for any of the kings in the original series.
Well, so, I'll have to look at that, because that's interesting. Yeah. But I would say the reason it's gone in Game of Thrones would be the same reason Daenerys slowly kind of sheds a few of her 10 titles when she's announced.
There's just too many.
You just drop you just keep the important ones that you want to be like Breaker of Chains. She kept that one. Mother of Dragons. She kept that one, because those ones are badass. So whoever these guys are, they probably became less important.
Yeah,
because obviously,
that's what I thought.
First Men, Seven Kingdoms, Realm, those are bigger, better words to use. Than Forgotten Dead people.
Yeah, either that, or I just assume that some king had a falling out with whoever these people are, just dipped them off of the title card.
Drop that one.
Yeah,
you get to pick 7.
Right.
And stop it right there. So yeah. We've talked about this quite a bit. So big exposition, big high tower show. They love doing this stuff. And it's a really cool set piece. It's really cool. It's a big set piece. Even though Aegon's kind of it's a shitty situation, it's really cool. They're all on stage there. Everyone looks good. He has a range of emotions walking into there, and even getting up on stage. He gets this nod from each of the important people on the stage, and then he turns around and gets the applause. And it was really cool.
Yeah, I agree.
They could have ended the episode there, and it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But the showrunner kind of put it, he was like, this is good, but we need something a little better. And obviously during the coronation here, Rhaenys slips her way into the dungeons, or the under parts of the dragon pit, and she gets both her badass armor and her badass dragon, which looks freaking awesome. The spike ring
very
thing,
cool. Yeah,
whatever.
Yep.
She just bursts through the floor on her dragon like a complete hard ass, kills a bunch of innocent people. That's okay. And this was her statement piece of this isn't really cool. So I'm going to really kind of upset your party here,
Yeah, I'm
much
gonna
like
drive that home. Yeah.
my cousin did the last time you guys did something like this. Like he came crippling into the throne room. I'm gonna burst in on my dragon because I have one. He didn't.
Right.
And she just like flips her character into like total like grandma badass mode. She looks like an accomplished dragon rider. She looks like
Yes.
she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, for
She's
sure,
no
dude.
joke.
Yeah. And it's cool because we've seen her, like you said, as the passive character. Like, she's always in a gown, super passive most of the time. She gets in arguments here and there. She just argue a lot, but nothing escalated to this level,
Just
obviously.
her husband and like Rhaenyra,
Right.
really.
So it's super cool. Like, this transformation was awesome, dude. When her coming through the fog, I was like, dude,
Yeah.
badass, man. Like, this is so cool. Her armor's awesome looking. And like we said earlier, it's like, I think it's her like saying, like, okay, it's on. Just wanted to let you know before it dipped out. Like, shit's
FYI,
about to hit the
guys,
fan.
I think you guys fucked up.
Yeah.
This looks really bad.
Right.
I'm gonna go like just spoil the party for you guys
Yeah.
just a little bit, and I'm gonna go tell Rhaenyra. Um, and we'll have this conversation again tomorrow. With
Yeah.
a few more dragons and um, up the stakes here. Make the playing field even, because I
Even,
think that's
right.
the big negative here is like the playing field is so uneven. Like the high
Right.
towers just take complete advantage of the situation and just try to get off on all the right
Yeah.
foots,
Yeah.
feet.
So dirty. And I guarantee you that the Targaryens are gonna be pissed when they hear this story, and I'm talking maybe get on our dragon backs right now, pissed, because not
Yeah, but
only did they
everyone comes to the
usurp.
funeral.
Right.
We're gonna have a funeral scene where everyone's together,
Everyone's
and it's just
together,
like
so
dragons.
awkward. Yeah. I think that not only they usurped the throne from Rhaenyra, they also just left her dad just like, the Silent Sisters wrapped him up, and he's just, like, chilling somewhere. We're not worried about the funeral. We're moving forward over it's a scummy thing to do, dude, and they are not gonna take it well.
No, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a great point. It's like they completely just like kicked aside all typical tradition, like the normal order of events. Like at least maybe try to like they could like Alcint probably would have been like, "Hey, Rhaenyra, Dad said this.
Yeah.
I think it's true."
Yeah.
Um, and went about it that way. But the fact that
Right.
like they just skipped over any attempt at like looping them in, there's like, we're just gonna kill them and you just
Yeah.
move on. Like there's no way to spin this to where it's like, they're doing the right thing. Like, no, they're
Right.
not.
I mean, I get it. I get it. I get that the reason they didn't do the funeral is because they wanted to secure the throne,
Oh yeah.
right? And you can't let word get out. Rainier is going to be there in a day and a half or however long it takes to get
Less than
from.
that.
Yeah, probably less than that. So I get it, but yeah, I'll be honest with you, man.
I
That
bet it's a 30
green,
minute ride on Dragonback.
yeah, that green bandana is getting more and more brown by the moment. I think that's maybe the color that you would get if you mixed red and green as brown. It's slowly turning. So maybe by the end of next week's episode, I might be full sided with the Targaryens because this was a very scummy, scummy, scummy episode we had a lot of weird shit going on the Hightower side, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if I really want to align myself. And I really like that you keep bringing up that the Red Keep is becoming like a prison now because it's very dark. Like they're imprisoning all the people that knew that the king were dead. We saw it in the episode. What's his face is just hanging in
In
the
in the atrium there.
in the atrium of it. Like it's
And
a
like
dark
Rhaenys,
freaking place. Yeah.
yeah, and like Rhaenys comes out of her room for the first time in like 24 hours, and it's like, what is going on here?
Right.
Like, dude's just hanging. Like, this place is like no bueno. And that's
Yeah.
where, that's where she's really kind of gathering reassurance that she's like, yeah, I'm making the right choice here because like this family's like nuts. Like,
Yeah.
you
Right.
guys are insane. This
Yeah.
is not normal.
And it's and it's the same feeling I'm getting as well. Like I aligned myself maybe on the wrong side of this so far.
Yeah.
And this episode really drove that home. Like I'm on the shit show side, unfortunately.
Hey, you like Otto.
Yeah.
You're lying with Otto.
Yeah. He just keeps making such terrible, scummy decisions, man.
It's just that he doesn't try to hide it. Like
Yeah.
this episode, there was no attempt to like
No.
spin it,
Right.
other than like kill 10 to save 10,000. Like, yeah,
Yeah, that
that's
was
a
it.
decent argument, but like you haven't gone about it any better.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So what happens next episode?
I don't know, man. I like to think in my head that it's gonna be the Targaryen side of everything that
Hmm.
happened in this episode, but that feels odd for a season finale, so I'm sure we're gonna get some sort of action going on. I would think maybe a funeral. I don't know, man. I didn't watch
Poor guy.
the or no, I did watch it, and it shows
I did too.
basically nothing. Yeah, it
And
shows basically
I
nothing.
already forgot it. I don't even know what I
Yeah,
saw
yeah, me too.
anymore.
So, yeah. Yeah, I think that we're gonna get probably a lot more Targaryen side in this one, which
Oh,
I think will be a cool way to end the season, honestly, if I'm being honest with you. If we're not gonna have a big action set piece, which I maybe don't really think we're going to get, it's a cool way to end it with episode 9 being all the high towers, episode 10 being all the Targaryen stuff. And now we have everybody comfortably in their positions, where they're at, what's happening, what they're thinking, moving on to the second season. But I don't know. What
someone's
do you
got to
think?
die.
You think someone's got to die? Yeah.
Someone kind of big's got to die. Maybe that's just not this show's like forte because everyone is gonna event like they all have their deaths and they can't mess with that too much.
Right.
So maybe that's just not something to expect. That we do get the occasional death, but nothing crazy.
Yeah.
But
Not
I don't
yet.
know. Usually there is some sort of big like death
Right.
that really switches things up in the finales.
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of, even though we saw it coming miles away all season long, I kind of took the king as the big death for the show. He was kind of the Ned of the entire season, right? Like
Yeah.
you knew it wasn't going to end right for him. So that to me was the big death, even though it's so abundantly clear through, especially the 7, 8, and 9 that he was, or 7 and 8 that he was on death's door stop or whatever. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going with no deaths. I think
No
we're
deaths.
setting the stage for all the big shit that's going to happen in season 2, and I'm here for it. I like what we've got going on here so far. So
Yeah, but I'm just like thinking of like the last season of Game of Thrones too much to where we just are
yeah,
like randomly dropping dragons and like main
right.
characters. Because like I mean I guess one of the Targaryen kids could like really get upset and ride a dragon to King's Landing and someone do something brash like that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe,
I
I
think
feel
if
like
anything, the kids are up for deaths.
yeah.
There are some of them that maybe don't need to be here. So if I had to
Yeah.
guess, that'd be my pick as one of the younger kids, maybe.
Yeah. The show's just I just don't know what's gonna happen. That's the tough thing. And there's nothing like obviously apparent in terms of like,
Right,
oh, this is gonna happen. Because
right.
there's so many things going on. I think it'd be hard to go. The weird thing is like it's really easy for them in this episode to go without any like Dragonstone information.
Yeah,
And also Rhaenyra said she was coming back on Dragonback right away.
right.
In the last episode. So she's supposed to be coming back and visiting Alicent to have
Yeah,
some girl time. So I guess she's going to learn of the bad news before that happens.
for sure. Yeah,
So it'd be
yeah,
interesting if they just hung out completely on the Targaryen side the whole episode. I think that would be a very strong decision,
yeah.
even though it would be
I
kind of
agree.
fair, like show episode wise. They would have to like really set it up, and obviously, I feel like whatever they did would have to either really show how well their footing is going into season 2 or kind of show them like have a good time and then like a bad time at the end. I don't know.
Yeah, yep.
the show's definitely different in terms of like how they set up like deaths, plot twists, things like that, which is
Yeah,
really fun
absolutely.
because
Yeah,
you
definitely.
know, you know, good thing we didn't start like a kill counter at the beginning of this because
Yeah,
like really there isn't
not
many
too
kills
many.
to count.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a very different show.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think that has a lot to do with where we're at in this story specifically,
Yeah.
more than it just being a different show. Because I think this is like the peacetime leading up to all that crap, right? I'm sure we're gonna get some crazy deaths and twists and all that stuff, but we gotta lay the groundwork first, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the groundwork's there.
It's there, and yeah, I love it. I love it so far. So
It's all over next week,
yeah, I
and we
know,
get
man.
get to wait like what a
Yeah,
year.
a year and a half probably. Who knows?
Oh God, don't say that.
Yeah, I mean that was the later season. I'm going off the later seasons of Game of Thrones. And if they didn't have the ability to crank those things out in a year, I don't think they're going to have the ability to do this in under a year either. So, bummer.
Yeah, yeah, but I think they've improved their technology options quite a bit
That's
since
true.
then. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy how far like really Mandalorian and uh them inventing the volume really has changed things in terms
Yeah.
of
That's a good point.
how they can like get stuff out there. Not that the show relies on it a lot, but they use it and they use
Yeah.
everything else at their disposal. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I'm here for the wait, honestly, because
that's
in
true.
my experience, typically the wait it's worth the wait, right? Like it comes out better polished, especially if we're just talking like video game delays. They come out far better polished than they would have if they came out broken,
Yeah.
right?
And I was thinking about this on the my second rewatch of this episode. Is I guess they if they've cracked it twice, if not improved upon the formula here for Game of Thrones, I would say the fact that they pulled this whole season off, um, the way they did, being so good, they might have just like an immaculate formula here.
Yeah.
That if they can repeat it like this, arguably like I don't want to say better yet, but like the the polish that this has, just because it has that confidence of Game of Thrones, like season 6,
Yeah.
rolling with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
I think if you have to compare, at least in my mind, you have to compare House of the Dragon season 1 with season 1 of Game of Thrones.
right.
Vastly, vastly superior. House of the
Yes.
Dragon is vastly superior to the first season of Game of Thrones, and I love the first season of Game of
Yeah.
Thrones, right? Now, granted, I get that
There's a age thing. It's
yeah,
older.
they're coming off of the later seasons of Game of Thrones with technology and everything going on, but I'm saying even story-wise,
Oh
vastly
yeah.
superior.
Technology, filming, writing, basically like they have somehow recreated and slightly like refined like the best of Game of Thrones into like a whole season.
Yep, I agree 100%.
Like
And it
there's definitely higher points in Game of Thrones, like better
yeah,
moments,
yeah,
better things, but like overall to like you said, first season, like
yeah, dude.
they have taken all the best stuff and just like made it into
I agree. Yeah,
the perfect season if you were to have
yeah,
tell this story. Obviously, like if you were to redo Game of Thrones and all that stuff, it'd be different. But
yeah,
yeah, it's not like they're restarting from scratch.
right.
Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's nuts. Like it's just they're just continuing to improve their formula.
yeah, and it
So
coulda went totally the other direction too. Like, this coulda came out and flopped, and it is certainly not, in my
yeah,
eyes, at least.
but like yeah, they've had a few like mishaps and they continuously improve like the little editing stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but the fact that it keeps the fact that they can refine that formula and it's the attention to the detail to the
Yes.
world and like the
Yes.
set pieces but also the writing but like just the attention like it's just so immersive like
Really
everything's just
is.
so aesthetically together nothing's like out of place
Yeah,
um
absolutely.
and everything transports you there whereas like season 1 of Game of Thrones, like, it's nostalgic in that, like, yeah, there's a scene in a meadow by the river where, like, Joffrey gets in a they get into that fight, but,
Right.
like, nothing about that scene is quote unquote Game of Thrones transport. Like, I'm just by
Right.
the edge of a stream
Right.
in the middle of
Yeah.
the country.
Yeah. Right.
So it's just impressive to me that that they were able to pull this off, and hopefully they can keep it up with the numerous spin-offs that they plan on doing.
Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope so.
And I'm kind of
I think they'll be able to.
yeah, and I'm glad they scrapped. Um, I like the reason they scrapped the one pilot because they're like it just didn't do it. Like it
Didn't do
just
it.
did not
Right.
transport you there, and that was such a smart decision
Yeah,
because
I agree.
like it's got to click. If it doesn't click, it's not gonna work.
Right.
Um,
Right. And I hope someday they release that because they did spend a ridiculous amount of money on that pilot
it's like
by
30
some
million or
reports.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So just slap it. Like it's not gonna ruin anything. Slap it up on HBO as like a
just like an
Christmas
extra.
present. Yeah, an
Yeah.
extra. And let me watch it because I need more White Walker stuff in my life, and I'm certainly not gonna get it in this show. Even though I did get more White Walker stuff in the show than I thought I was going to, just in dialogue, but
Yeah, and that's like an idea that they just like scrap that pilot, reapply it, redo it, and improve it.
yeah,
Because I would like to think that they hit the like board with like, all right, we've got the three things we're gonna pitch you. We're gonna go with the best one. This was the best one. They scrapped like the other ones.
right.
The next round, when they're like, all right, we need the next one. Maybe that idea gets retried. Different
Yeah.
pilot, different everything,
Dude,
and eventually they stick.
I would literally maybe not literally, I would kill for I would kill for a anime about the first time the White Walkers showed up.
Yes, that would be
Yeah,
the perfect
dude.
format.
Oh, dude.
Children of the Forest,
Yes,
White
dude.
Walkers, the
It would be
First
so
Men.
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be so good.
I'm thinking like Vinland Saga style,
Yeah.
just like animate that for me,
Yes.
please.
Oh, man. It'd be so good. You can
Or
take that
Samurai Jack
HBO.
would be cool, like something
Yeah.
like some of these like newer renditions of
Yeah.
that kind of style. Something it would have to be dark, apparently, like dark and
Yeah.
blue.
Yeah, I'm thinking like Castlevania style of darkness.
Joe Cross says, maybe not literally,
Well, I don't wanna say on the internet that I would literally kill somebody for something,
figuratively, literally.
figuratively.
Um, with that, that's all I have.
That's all I got.
This fine evening. We will see you next week for the finale of this great show. See how it all ends for the first season, and then, like Chad thinks, we'll have to wait a good year and 8 months for the next
Easy.
season.
Easy.
Oh, what's he got? What if you got it, but it had to be Powerpuff Girls art style?
I'm
Yeah,
here
I'm fine
for it.
with that.
Yep.
Yep.
Give it yep.
I'm cool with
And
that, Joe. Definitely Powerpuff Girls, like because the Children of the Forest would have the color
perfect.
bursts,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then yeah, and then there would just be the
It's
very
more
dark.
perfect than it comes out in your
Boom.
comment there, Joe.
You can't ruin it, Joe.
Yeah.
You can't do it. Can't do it. Anyway, Joe, thanks for tuning in. For the comments too, and definitely enjoy this House of the Dragon intro music that we'll use as the outro, made by the one and only Dad the Cap. Dude's awesome. And this week we'll be reviewing on Thursday Fear Street Volume 1, and also we will be discussing video games that may have taken it too far, and what does it really mean for a video game to take it too far when it comes to crossing the line in terms of like horror and just trying to, what is it, trigger people, their sensitivities. Not sure. So it'll be an interesting episode, gaming episode, and we'll be looking at Fear Street. But until then, we'll catch you all later, my fine folk. Peace out.